Hello everybody and welcome for one last time in 2025 back to the Scottish Open final, and it's a big showdown. It is Chris Wakelin against Chang Bingyu session 2, and for one last time in 2025 we're about to see some snooker action unfold before our very eyes, and a special shout out has to be given to the referee of the match, Leo Scully. Announcement being made that it will be his last match that he's going to referee, so being in the game since 1984, was a big legend in the game, and we wish him all the best for the rest of his career outside of snooker. But for Chang Bingyu and Chris Wakelin, it is going to be, well, certainly second part of the party started, and Chris Wakelin managed to get off to a great start to the first session, winning 5 frames on the bounce and turning that minor deficit of 2 frames to 1 into 6-2 advantage that he will try and convert into his second ranking event win. He's been here before, of course. He was up against the world number 1 with the Northern Ireland Open, champion of Watchalong in 2023, being up against him, and he managed to beat the ace in the pack. He managed to lose to the ace in the pack by 9 frames to 3, and of course the former winner of the Snooker Shootout as well. Apart from that, he's going to be his 3rd ranking event final appearance, and well, Chang Bingyu has probably a little bit of a limited access to this sort of area. He hasn't made a quarter-final appearance before the start of this week at the Scottish Open, but he has managed to take it into the quarter and the semi-final before reaching the last 2 stage after beating the likes of Mark Allen, Mark Selby, Karen Wilson, CJ Wheat and Stephen Maguire. And when you talk about Chris Wakelin, he had a brilliant start to get him into this position, but the 3 frames that he's going to be in between himself and the Stephen Hendry Trophy, and also a prize money of 100,000, is still going to be very significant for him. And yes, Kevin back in the chat there. The legend is back there, and yes, certainly enjoy the last, well, maybe it is going to be the last 3 frames. Maybe it'll be 9 more frames if we are to go the distance. Remember the previous 2 Home Nation Series events have actually gone the deciding frame before. It was Jack Lisowski and Mark Allen that managed to beat Joey Long and Judd Trump at that time. And we had a similar situation for Joey Long, to be fair. Of course, the player from China that was up against the high-rated favourite. And Joey Long was 7-2 down before he managed to overcome the deficit and come back into the final at that time. Now then, Chris Wakelin just having a look to see. He's going to have a safety on the left-hand side of one of those reds to try and push them onto the right cushion of the table. I think it's going to be a nice little boost for him to try and get started. And as I say, especially in the later part of the opening session, we have seen Chris Wakelin battling out and winning majority of their safety battles. And, well, probably you have to say, he was winning everything because, unfortunately for Chang Bingyu, he was on the receiving end of majority of those things. As I say, couldn't really string a pot success together, dropping from 93 to 84% as it stands. And only being, well, having 2 decent breaks there to his name. Only one of them was at 50 plus, because the good news was it was a Saint shoe being made in the final. Chris Wakelin had a couple of breaks which have been 60 plus, but in the end, not quite one of them has actually made it to be the 3-digit number. It's just been busy, but great to be at least, well, thank you very much. But as I say, the last one of 2025 until we're going to get to the Masters, the likes of Australian Open and stuff like that. Of course, we're going to have the German Masters qualifier very soon after the new year. And, well, very important shot now for Wakelin because it was a good safety previously by Chang Bingyu. And he has to be very careful with this one, Wakelin, because he was always going to split the reds up away from each other, and well, didn't really manage to play a good shot there. So it will be an opening chance to Chang Bingyu. And remember, barring the second mini session, he was playing some good stuff there, Chang. And of course, when you lose one of those mini sessions by 4-0, you're not going to be able to have a good advantage coming into the second session. But as Jimmy White said in the studio, if he wins the first mini session by 3 frames to 1, he's going to be right back in this final. And for him to try and get off to a good start, he needs to pull this long pot into the left corner. And he wasn't quite able to do it. And, well, the red has cannoned along the black ball cushion and has gone in the way of the other reds. So it's probably going to prevent Wakelin from going for a couple of those reds into the right corner. Let's see if Chang left anything into the right middle. And I think, well, Wakelin has managed to get a couple of those reds before. But I think they were at the stage of the frame where it was a frame ball for him. I think it was frame number 7. And, well, Wakelin is able to pull another great shot into the right middle. And do you think Ners will play to that? Don't really think so, because Chris Wakelin seems to be just really, really calm and Mr. Consistent. And I don't really think there is going to be enough of a gap for Chang Bingyu to try and get down to. So if it was 6-4, 6-5, then maybe yes. But when he's 6-2, he's just rolling through the gears. And realistically, when Selt was getting close to Chris Wakelin yesterday, or when Yuan Jun were getting close to him beforehand, earlier this week, still wasn't really phased off by any of it. And if anything, Russia managed to get the most out of Wakelin so far. And has been able to produce those brilliant clearances against both Selt and Yuan Jun previously. Naren gets himself into the first chance, rolls the brown into the green pocket, and just having a look to see if he's going to be able to go for the red to the left part of the table. He's got the pink to try and pot into the right middle for good measure, and try and get the black to be respotted onto its original position as well. And I think if you try and pot it into the left corner, you're going to be able to just get it back onto its natural environment, and that way have the position to be set up with pretty much all the requirements being there for you. But it's a bad shot there by Wakelin, because I don't really understand if he was playing for the pink or blue. Probably for the pink, because he was miles away from the being on the blue, even with the wrong side of it. But he's not necessarily perfect on this pink either. to take this shot into the right middle. But once again, he wouldn't be taking the shot if he wasn't 6-2 up. And these shots will actually tell if he's going to be facing with any sort of pressure. And so far, the answer is no. It's a great start once again there for Wakelin. Gets himself to roll the pink in nicely. And just having a look to see if he's going to be able to continue the break right now. I think he's got one of those reds underneath the pink that he can try and guide into the left corner. And that way, if you play the shot with topspin, you'll be able to get the cue ball through the pink to be taken into the right middle instead. And still compromised slightly by the fact of the cue ball being perfectly on the cushion. And as he managed to roll the cue ball with enough power, I think he has. And still not going to be perfect on this pink. But at least he's managed to get, at least, well, one of those reds closer to the left corner. That way, it allows the cue ball to have a wider room of positional play to be available on that red. But still not quite able to get himself set up for the black. May have to go for the blue right now, especially with his body language probably suggesting the same thing. As I say, he doesn't really want to give the position away to Chang because he still has some of those reds available. And he's played some great snooker so far. And it's another beautiful shot that he makes into the green pocket with the blue to be dispatched perfectly. Now then, the red that he's going to be very close to the right corner pocket. I think he can guide the cue ball to be set up for the black or pink. Because, as I say, still at this stage, you want to put the black onto its spot and try and score all the points that you can with so many reds already being set up on the cushion. And in fact, there's going to be 4 of them on the black ball cushion, 3 more on the right side cushion. That's going to leave Wakelin very much limited in terms of the thing that he can do and the points that he can actually score during his visit at the table right now. 19 points advantage, and best middle pocket pot in the world. He practices them all the time. I mean, as I say, I don't really understand why he was such an underdog going into this final. I know that you've got Chang Bingyu winning against all kinds of legends, but don't write Chris Wakelin off. He's been steady, but he's been really, really good and consistent. You know, maybe he had a little bit of a struggle of getting over the line against Matthew Selt, and well, not quite in this final yet, because the 2 frames that he's lost, as I say, were dominated by Chang Bingyu in the majority of them. And yeah, absolutely can't write this guy off, and he just proves it time and time again. Sometimes when you have a bad run, the best way to stop it is have a brilliant run like this. Now scoring 24 points. As I say, I think 6-2 of a gap is already going to be too much for Chang Bingyu to try and get away from. But if it is going to be converted into 7-2, then we could be here for a very short session. And an early good night for the snooker fans as we go into the festive season of Christmas. Now then, 31 points, as another pink is going to disappear into the right middle. And unfortunately, it does look like we didn't have a break of 2 hours at all, and Chris Wakelin is still back at the table trying to dominate the table time. And Chang Bingyu is back into the right corner and just watching his opponent score all those points. But I think it is going to be a minor issue here for Wakelin, because I think he was trying to get around the pink and set it up for the left corner. Instead, he's going to be setting himself up with a difficult shot to try and play. In terms of, you can drop the pink into the right corner, but how's he going to get on the red into the left or right corner? And the way that he's taken this one with the rest, maybe just suggesting that he's going to try and pot the plant of those 2 reds. Surprised at this moment, but you know, 38 points advantage, as I say, 99 at the table, but probably going to have 83 of those points just covered up and not being available to Chang Bingyu. Those 2 reds are going to be the only threat that Chris Wakelin can give away right now, and he is having a look. I mean, he needs minor adjustment for the reds to be going straight into the right corner pocket, and the way he plays it with topspin, he's going to get the cue ball to the top part of the table anyway, straight into the heart of the pocket, and doesn't want the cue ball to drop though, and it's going to finish perfectly on the blue. So once again, I mean, it was such a good start to the second mini session in the opening part of this match for Wakelin, but he does seem to, well, trying to not stop there and produce another brilliant break here. 44 points after this blue, but I mean, it's really easy to just saying that it could have been done by anyone. But the reds that Wakelin had to deal with certainly deserve some round of applause and respect. Now then, it doesn't seem to be too sort of quick to take this blue into the right middle. So just having a look to see if he's going to have the position on the last red that he currently has available. Means business tonight. Well, it was all about business throughout these tournaments since it started. And he has managed to continue this form into the start of the second session, it would seem. Remember, he had a nice little chance in the opening frame. He had a couple of those, right at the start of the first session, but he was able to take it away from Chang Bingyu before the response from the Chinese player, winning 2 frames on the bounce, and then completing the first session with 5 frames on the bounce. And, well, I knew that Wakelin was going to be a threat. I couldn't really think of him having such a dominant performance against Chang Bingyu. That was probably something that we expected to see from Kyle Wilson, Mark Selby, Mark Allen, and Si Xiaowei and Steven Maguire. But in the end, where neither of them were actually able to produce this type of a performance, then you have to say Chang Bingyu was able to dominate those games. But as I say, I think the fact that he had to dominate all of those games has actually given Chris Wakelin a way into this final, because you've seen that when Chang Bingyu is going to be able to dominate those games, he's a threat and he's really difficult to spot. But we haven't actually seen any one of the top-rated players get in front of Chang Bingyu and try and put pressure on him, as Chris Wakelin goes for a double into the left middle. And after scoring 50 points on the break, it is going to be Chang Bingyu in with a chance here of going for a long shot into the yellow pocket. Of course, the yellow and the green pockets so far have been one of his weakest points. 2 shots into the yellow pocket and 3 shots into the 3 shots into the green pocket. All of them missed, but this one is going to be taken nicely. And Chang Bingyu is not out of the picture just yet. He probably will be by the end of this frame, because I still can't see him making a total clearance or just getting close to Wakelin, with the 6 of the remaining reds being perfectly on the cushion. But at least he's given himself something to try and work with. Hammers the brown into the yellow pocket, but the problem is he's still going to be nowhere near having the positional play on either one of those 6 reds. And he's got 75 points to try and make his way through, but for the time being, it's all going to be just trying to make more of those reds in open play. And, well, I mean, I wouldn't actually be sort of too much against of the fact of him just trying to eliminate those reds without the colours, but this is a great starting point. Perfect safety shot being played, and, covering the cue ball, getting the cue ball to cover the length of the table and get perfectly behind the green. It is going to be a snooker lined up for Chris Wakelin, and one of those reds actually being in open play. The problem was Chris Wakelin wasn't going to go for one of those reds. And let's see if he's actually given a red away, because it's not quite going to be a touch and ball. And as long as Chang avoids a push shot on this one, he should be able to, well, at least have a look at this one, but he thinks otherwise. Doesn't think that it is going to be worth having a look, and just get one more of those reds in open play. But this time he's not going to have the cover from the green. Needs the cover from the blue to be his for the taking, and I think he's going to be all right there for the left corner. Problem is, one of the other reds that he's managed to bring into play on the previous shot is going to be the right that Chris Wakelin can potentially take into the right corner right now. It was close, but he couldn't quite make it stick, and wants to avoid the kiss on the blue, which he has done. Still, the position on the cue ball was good enough for him to make it a good enough of a safety shot, and I think Chang Bingyu will have pretty much identical chance to go for a very similar red into the right corner. And he can try and take it away here from Wakelin. Now, just having a look to see that he's going to be the case. Playing this shot with lots of topspin. Try and get himself lined up for the right corner of a shot to be set up. And getting the cue ball, very importantly, to the top part of the table. That will give him some sort of assurance if he's going to miss that red. But, I mean, he had that red missed and also coming into the other red. And in the end, he's got 3 reds available in open play right now for Chris Wakelin. And surely it is going to be a game over in the frame in 6 shots time or so. Probably even less than that, because he's not going to need all 3 of those reds. So he plays those with colours. Gets the first into the right middle. And now needs a good bounce of the cue ball to land on the blue. And he's not going to be perfect, but he can go for the yellow. I mean, well, probably not going to be perfect either, but as long as he's not straight, he can try and go for a topspin shot. And if he's going to be straight, which it does seem to be the case, has to go for a backspin shot and try and get cue ball lined up for the red into the right middle. Now then, 48 points as an advantage, so probably will need 3 more shots for him to be taken. First red into the right middle, then probably the pink to be taken into the left corner, and then wrap it off with the red taken into the left corner as well. Now then, having the cue ball to slow down perfectly for the pink, and once again, Chang Bingyu has had a chance. But as I said at that point, Chris Wakelin having that 50 points advantage and having 6 reds to be positioned perfectly on the cushion was always going to put Chang Bingyu under a lot of pressure and a lot of issues there for him to make an incredible comeback and get himself back potentially within touching distance there of sort of trying to get back at this frame and then have at least one of them to be climbed back. In the end, it is going to be a dominant performance once again from Chris Wakelin, and well, certainly at this stage, it does seem to be just a matter of time until we are going to be going into just crowning the new champion. Of course, for the first time at the Home Nation Series, it is going to be Chris Wakelin or Chang Bingyu, but with only 2 frames away there for Chris, surely I don't think that we're going to see Chang Bingyu to come back to the table. He's going to be 62 points down with 51 remaining, and I think he can try and get this red into the right corner pocket, and as he has the cue ball to cannon away from the main bunch, well, Chang Bingyu probably has to try and fight back. No, he's not going to, so it is going to be Chris Wakelin 7 and Chang Bingyu 2, so take some comeback net. Well, I mean, I was just going to say that it is game over, but we have seen Watchalong to be 7-2 down against Chris Wakelin, against Mark Allen in the final of the English Open. Of course, he was, well, technically, I think he was after the opening frame of the second session, so it was a similar sort of situation, but I can't really see that being the case right now, because I can't really understand why and how Allen managed to lose 6 frames on the bounce at that time, and turn 7-2 of a gap into 8-7 of a deficit, and somehow he still managed to win against Watchalong. But you know, Joe has a lot more experience, even though probably not quite reaching the ranking event final at that stage, but still at the main arena and playing against the likes of Mark Allen. But once again, you probably can make the case of Chang Bingyu didn't have that experience when he was playing for the tour card last season, and yet he still managed to beat Mark Selby, Karen Wilson, Seijao Wee, Stephen Maguire, and Mark Allen in the semi-final. But as I say, I think when you're 5 frames down, it is not going to be possible. And here Wakelin had a chance of a 150 plus break yesterday, amazing. Not that I'm aware of. No, he didn't have a free ball. He had a free ball drama with Matthew Selt, because I was watching both this match and the semi-final against Selt, but he had a very late drama with Matthew Selt because he was 60 points clear, and he was basically playing a frame ball. He hammers the red into the right corner, he pots it, and because he had a ball in hand, or something like that, I think he was playing the cue ball into the main bunch of reds. He managed to get the perfect cannon, but the pink has gone into the yellow pocket. The cue ball somehow finished behind the bulk line, and that allowed Selt to have the free ball chance, and therefore had an easy introduction with the brown, cleared up the table, made a break of 70 points, and made an incredible comeback at that frame. But Wakelin had a chance of a 147 today, and I think yesterday as well, but yesterday was a slim one, like it was 5 or 6 reds. Today was 8 reds and 8 blacks, and he just run himself out of position slightly. So he was playing through the red to get on the black. He couldn't play a backspin, but he didn't really have the angle, so in the end he decided to go for a backspin shot and get himself lined up for the blue, and he missed that shot anyway. So he was like 70 points that I think he made. It was frame number 7, I think. And then he needed 1 more red for him to be over the line. And yeah, in the end, it was a break of 70 points. So using the 8 reds, 8 blacks, and then 1 blue with 1 more of those reds. So I can't really think of a 150 plus break, because you're talking about free ball, because it's 147 and then it is going to be 155. You're going to have a free ball chance because he's got a red that is going to be chosen as any other color, and then you can try and play the normal black and have 15 more reds, or taking 15 more blacks, so technically 16 reds, 16 blacks, and then there's 6 color clearance to be straightforward. Now then, Chang Min-yu goes for a break-off shot and once again just leaves it on the plate. Not quite on the plate, but for the way that Wakelin has been playing, he's going to be able to take this red into the left corner, and well, I don't think there's going to be any sort of pressure anyway. But Chris just seems to be rolling through the gears and trying to get away from Chang at this stage. If he gets this red in, he's pretty much guaranteed to have a position on at least one of those colours. Free ball was brown, got to 80 break with 153 finish still on. It may have been against someone else, but it certainly wasn't the case against Cells or Chang Min-yu. So probably not yesterday, but the day before maybe, because that was the only 2 matches that I've seen Wakelin play. And I'll have a look. I'll have a look to see if I'm going to find it on the article on the news. Free ball was brown. Got a 280 break with 1-3 finish still on. Bit weird, but I'll trust you on that one. Now that Chang Min-yu has got an easy red to be taken into the left corner, which he does take, but I think he was trying to play the cue ball through the shot, get himself lined up for the black. Instead, you can try and take the pink into the right middle. Plays the shot with a bit of power and misses the pink. So, yeah, I think it is going to be one of those days for Chang Min-yu, unfortunately. He doesn't really have the experience of have the backup option. You know, when you've got Selby or Trump not playing well, they'll try and go into defensive mode. Chang Min-yu doesn't know anything other than attack, and of course nothing wrong with that. But, you know, when you don't make those shots like this pink into the right middle in the final, when you're 7-2 down, not going to last very, very long. Come on, Chang, give us a game. Not quite. And unfortunately, he's no longer at the table, and Chris Wakelin has got a straightforward red to roll into the left middle, and as long as he avoids the cannon on the red, which he has done magnificently once again, he's going to be lined up perfectly for the black to be taken. So, Chris Wakelin, have a look at what you've got now. He's got a chance to, well, have those 13 reds exploited, only one of them on the side cushion. But as we've seen in the match against Celt, sometimes that can be handy, especially when Wakelin's going to be edging out on that finish line. You know, he said it himself, could have won that match 3 or 4 times before actually doing that on frame number 10. And certainly feel like he could have won that match 6-1 or 6-2 for it to be sort of respectful to Celt. Once again, second red is taken. He's going to try and get the pink to be potted. I think it is going to be put onto the blue spot. I think that's exactly what Wakelin has checked. And, well, he's got no reason to panic, but I also don't think that he would if it was business end of this final here. 14 points is the advantage for him at this moment in time. Just having a look if he can go for this red to be taken into the right corner. Play through the shred and get himself lined up for the pink to be taken into the left middle as well. Now then, 15 points advantage, so I think he's going to try and, well, he's got the perfect positioning of the blue and pink because it basically has 2 options. You know, if he runs himself slightly over the usual blue ball trajectory and line, you can try and take the actual blue and have it to be respotted. I don't actually know where the blue will go, probably right under its own spot, with all 6 spots being covered up, 5 of them by the colours and 1 more by the reds. But I think Wakelin is going to be able to free up the pink spot very quickly, and well, maybe that is going to be the time for him to try and put the blue onto the pink spot and keep the pink on the blue spot at this moment in time. Doesn't seem to be too happy with the way he's landed on this one. Well, this position is going to be slightly more difficult than the previous one, because of, you know, only having one of those reds on the side cushion as the backup option. Should Chang Min-yu return back to the table and have a realistic chance of getting himself to score 60 or 7 odd points. For now, Wakelin just looking to see if he's going to be able to go for the pink to be taken. And, ooh, Kevin, thank you. I can see the return of the legend in the chat. Thank you very much for gifting a membership. Absolute legend. Didn't expect anything else from him. And Growler has received the gift. So, yeah, W in the chat for Kevin. Legend of the game, as you would expect. Now then, very important shot for Wakelin. And he's not quite as much of a legend as Kevin was because he didn't manage to get himself perfectly lined up on either one of those reds. So let's see if he can get through. The shot to be taken into the right middle. He's tried to, and in the end, he's managed to do it so perfectly. He's still not quite as much of a legend as Kevin, but he's certainly on the right way. And perfectly rolled in red into the right middle. Still perfectly on the black. And just a matter of time. And it is going to be an 8-2 of an advantage for him to try and hold on to. Happy? Oh, I bet you are. Thank you very much, Kevin. Appreciate that and appreciate the support. 36 points of advantage for Chris Wakelin as he tries to have another red to be taken into the right corner. I think he has to try and breach over a couple of those reds, but shouldn't be too much of an advantage. And a bit of backspin, well, preferably applied on the cue ball. He's going to be able to sun it enough for the black to be possible. And sometimes, of course, when you have to play the shot whilst breaching over a couple of those reds, it can be quite difficult for you to try and get enough action on the cue ball. Great covering, thank you. Yes, it's a shame that, I've only seen you for the last session, but it has been a fun week. All the high-rated names have been, well, either withdrawn or knocked out quite quickly. And I was also going to say a massive shout-out to Mark Selby and Mark Cullen because realistically, I'm going to say, apart from the legend of Chris Wakelin, taking this tournament by storm, they have actually managed to turn up. Don't think you can say the same about Watchalong, Mark Williams, Neil Robertson, and even the likes of Zhao Karen Wilson, Bingyu, or Sean Murphy, that, well, some of them have actually turned up, but still have been knocked out very quickly. And, of course, it's a bit weird to see players from China doing so well at the tournament, the Whole Nation Series, and yet you don't really see the world champion playing so well. You just seem to hate the short formatted matches there with Zhao Xington because he made the 146 break in his match against Joe O'Connor, and that was in the opening frame. And he still managed to go on and lose by 4 frames to 1. And yes, Selby, yes, so thank you, because I was going to say, those two players have actually turned up and played some good snooker so far. So massive shout out to both Mark Cullen and Mark Selby. Apart from, of course, thank you very much to Chang and Chris Wakelin for putting up a great show this week. Being the two finalists very much deservedly so. And the reason why I'm saying that is because I don't think it is going to be very long until we see the end of the second session as well. There's always going to be a variable of either 3 or 9 frames or something in between. And with the first one already taken, the second one being on the approach, Chris Wakelin does seem to be taking this match by storm. 58 points advantage, 75 at the table. And, well, for the last sort of match of 2025, well, probably not going to say that it lives up to expectations, but, from Chris Wakelin's point of view, he doesn't really want to be responsible for entertaining the audience. He wants to be entertaining his fans, his family. He's got his daughter and his fiancée with him at the crowd. Of course, Chang has got his mum with him here, and, well, it does seem like that Chris Wakelin is going to do his part of the job and his part of the work. And once again, just confirming that sometimes when you play your best snooker before you reach the final, you're not going to be able to replicate that in the final stage again. This is why you love snooker, because it's such a different sport. You never know what might happen, and you can have the world number 128 turn up against Ronnie O'Sullivan and still get dominated by that world number 128 there. If Ronnie's not going to be playing well, of course, he always had that ability of trying to come back no matter what happens. And that is something that Chang Bingyu would have been trying to do at the start of the second session. But the frame is not quite over yet, because the frame ball was missed by Chris Wakelin. It was a difficult shot there, which he ran himself slightly wide on. And he's still going to be comfortably ahead, 66 points, with 67 at the table. One of those reds being on the side cushion, the other one being right next to Chang Bingyu. And, well, the fact that we actually have Chang Bingyu as the highest, as the player with the highest break so far, probably is going to be the only stat that he can take as being the winner of come the end of this final. Of course, unless we are going to see the massive turnaround and him winning 7 frames on the bounce. Of course, technically, it still is possible. It's very unlikely, but nothing stops you from taking it on a frame-by-frame basis and, breaking Chris Wakelin's queue in the progress. And just trying to leave him with the broom to try and play the remaining shot. But I mean, oh my word, you give him a broom and he'll still be able to pot some of those reds. It's an absolute cracker. It is one of the pots of the tournament. I couldn't even see that red was going through to the left corner, and Chris Wakelin still, I mean, what a shot that is. I mean, that has to be the shot of the tournament. I don't care what anybody says, but that is absolutely incredible. I didn't think the cue ball could get through to that red, and let alone see the perfect angle for it to be dropped into the left corner. I mean, that is definitely going onto the highlights reel. That is absolutely brilliant from Chris Wakelin. And of course, for it to be frame ball, I mean, you hate to be that person, but if that would have been the match ball, it would have been the perfect ending for Chris Wakelin here. And let's see if Chang Bingyu is going to come back to the table. He will do. But you feel like it is just going to be, well, a couple more shots for him to try and play, because he knows he might not get a better chance to try and feature in the ranking event final. Wakelin seeing winner's line. Right then, Chang Bingyu is going to try and at least get those 3 reds out of the way. Of course, he no longer has the opportunity to produce a total clearance and be over the line. I think he needs 2 snookers at this stage. Let's have a look. So then, he's 59 points. Yeah, so he needs 2 snookers to tie technically, and it was a brilliant long pot, by the way. Wasn't quite as good as the pot from Chris Wakelin, but it was still good enough to get himself lined up perfectly. Set up for the black to be taken, and rolls the red into the left corner. So once again, he's got 3 reds that he can try and pot. Managed to pot 2 of them to score 24 points, with those 3 being taken with the black, and trying to some bit of magic on the last of those remaining reds. Of course, we have seen his challenge of Chris Wakelin after Chris was, I don't know, 6 or 7 snookers up. Gone for the blue into the right corner, missed it. Somehow got the black to drop into the yellow pocket and given away a free ball, which of course gifted 12 points away to Chang Bingyu and left him with 1 snooker to tie for the respot. And now then, just trying to play those couple of shots with the black. So getting the first and the easy part of the task done. 43 points is going to be the difference, 35 at the table. Let's see what Chang Bingyu is going to try and do here. Getting this red to cannon away from the side cushion and get the cue ball in behind the ping. Nice shot, to be fair, because he had 2 parts of that story to get the red away from the cushion and also get the cue ball to be in behind the ping. Probably isn't going to be good enough to trouble and put Wakelin under enough pressure, but he has to try and do something. You can always try and wave the white flag at the end of it. And Wakelin once again perfectly lined up for this red to be taken as close to the right middle as possible. Of course, the closer you are to the pocket with this red, the more difficult it is for the player to control it in the way which is going to get it into the perfect situation for the opposition player to be faced up with another snooker. But he can't afford now to try and pot this red into the right middle, because that way he loses a free ball chance, which has been the enemy of Chris Wakelin previously. And I'm not sure if he was trying to pot it, because it looks to have bounced away from the pocket, and he's still got a snooker. Doesn't seem to have played that accidentally, so clearly trying to make things happen there. And well, certainly 100 marks for invention and probably 90 for execution. Gonna have to try and deal of the long side cushion from Chris Wakelin's point of view. Chang will need a few years learning a table craft. Yeah, listen, you have to say, I mean, it's incredible for him to reach the final, and fair play to the lad. I mean, 23 years of age, fighting for the tour card last season, and being in all sorts of headlines. As the world number 70 reaching the final stage, I mean, don't take anything away from him. You're always going to have one of those matches where it doesn't go your way, and as I say, you've got the perfect example of Shaun Murphy against Mark Williams, dominating the Xi'an Grand Prix, being by far the best player on the planet. I mean, if Ronnie managed to get through Gary Wilson, I think he would have been whitewashed by Murphy. He was playing that well. And in the end, he's got up against a struggling Mark Williams that barely managed to beat Daniel Wells in the semi-final, and then what happens? A 10-3 win for Williams, and winning the first session by 7 frames to 1. I mean, incredible from Mark, and Sean just couldn't get going until the match was over. And you're always going to have those days, and unfortunately, Snooker, you just have to say, well, preferably find the answer, or if you're unable to do that, as very few people do, only the best of the best, the likes of Mark Selby, Chomp to an extent. I probably wouldn't say that there's been a lot more on the tour right now. Maybe Kyron, when he's in a decent form, probably not right now. Maybe, well, I mean, Ali Carter, Stuart Bingham, springs to mind, but that was more of, a couple of years back with Chang Min-Yu's trying to battle away, but right now he got himself into a 50-50 of a safety battle. It's not really trying to get Snooker lined up on Wakelin, just trying to get hold of the cue ball and trying to have full advantage of those reds to be taken. When we will see Ronnie next, Daz Reynolds, it's a good question, and I mean, I'm not sure if you mean playing well, because I'm certainly will be looking forward to that day, but we're still yet to find out if he's going to be playing with the Masters, because technically he's got a match against Neil Robertson in the last 16, but when he was asked after being knocked out of the first round of the UK Championship if he's going to be a part of it in the Masters, he still said he doesn't quite know, and that was before his birthday, of course, a couple of weeks ago. Now then, Chang Min-Yu finds himself snookered and manages to get out of that situation. Nearly pots a red, which of course would have brought the end to the frame. And now let's see if he's given away this red into the yellow pocket. Not quite. So Wakelin's just trying to play his own game here and get the cue ball in behind the yellow, and I think he's managed to play the shot pretty well. So then, that is going to be the deadline for Ronnie for now. Cracking game of turning up. Yeah, I mean, we have seen the last time, Robertson against O'Sullivan. That was Saudi Arabia Masters, and that certainly lived up to all sorts of expectations. Apart from maybe the person that was able to get over the finish line. I think for all the money you thought that was going to be Ronnie, producing once again incredible comeback, 7-3 or 7-2 down. And still having that ability to go 9-8 up. And surely that is going to be the end of the frame. Now then, Chang Min-Yu is going to concede the frame, and he will do. And it is going to be Chris Wakelin with an 8-2 of a gap, taking over by... nearly awarded the frame to Chang Min-Yu there. That was premature. Now then, Chris Wakelin 8, Chang Min-Yu 2, and we are only one frame away, potentially, from Chris Wakelin being crowned the Scottish Open champion. And that will certainly be one way of taking a revenge for that dominating win of Judd Trump against Chris Wakelin a couple of years back. And you can see that sometimes, when you come back a couple of years later, this could be Chang Min-Yu in 2027. When he loses the first ranking event final, which, I mean, technically that would have been before the snooker shootout win, so it would have been the first ranking event final of Chris Wakelin's life. And, what he's managed to do, win the shootout against Julien Leclerc, the Belgian beast, and 2 years later, he's going to be in this position, being 8-2 up on his opponent, and, it is going to be 7 frames on the bounce, or Chris Wakelin to be the title winner. And if that is to be the case, then maybe it is he's going to unfold very, very soon. So the referee is going to be preparing the reds and the colours. Well, maybe for the last time in his professional career. You never know. Let's say it is going to be all down to the last couple of frames here. Especially if Chris Wakelin is going to be able to win any of them. But listen, you have to say, I mean, has Chang Min-Yu managed to... Well, he scored a couple of points in this frame, but realistically, it was still a complete and total domination, and if anything, he had a bit of an improvement from performance on Chris Wakelin's point of view, and he had a drop-off once again from Chang Min-Yu's point of view, and, you have to say sometimes this can be against you when you've played your best snooker coming into the final. Chris Wakelin had all sorts of experience, coming through some of the difficult opponents himself, and he's going to be able to... Well, happy Wakelin, yeah, certainly, I mean... As I say, it's not quite over just yet, but if he gets himself 70 more points within the space of one frame, it is certainly going to be celebrating the Christmas in the perfect spirit, being the winner of the Scottish Open 2025 Championship here at the Edinburgh, at the Meadow Arena. And now then, we're going to have the Scottish player to actually get us underway here with the Championship League won by Stephen Maguire. Then we had Kyron Wilson to win Shanghai Masters, Neil Robertson, Mark Allen, Sean Murphy, Mark Williams, Wu Yize, Jack Lisowski, Mark Selby twice, Champion of Champions and the UK Championship. And then we had, of course, the win for, well, either Chris Wakelin or Chang Mingyu there. But we are going to have the new winner here, whatever happens. But is it going to be frame number 11, the deciding one for Chris Wakelin? Or is he going to be at least one more chapter for Chang Mingyu to try and hold on to? He's tried his best, but it's been one of those days where he just hasn't gone his way ever since that third frame. And especially, I mean, sometimes just think about those fine margins. And if Wakelin goes into that second mini session 3-1 down, which he should have, and certainly could have, I mean, how much of a different match could we have seen? Because he's 3-1 down, Chang Mingyu once again has got a chance to dominate another match as he has against Selby, against Wilson, and against Si Xiaowei to an extent. Now then, has he got one more chance available to him? I think Chris Wakelin left a red available to him to be taking at the right middle. Just about gets the red to drop into the right middle, and he's still going to be fine for one of those ball colours to be available. And let's have a look. You see, certainly felt that he was very, very close. And, well, of course, at this stage, you probably have to say he's going to be just enjoying the moment and just being there in front of an incredible Scottish crowd, trying to, hold on to those moments. His big frame, that one to get to 2. Oh, yeah, I mean, that was massive because it was a brilliant clearance from Chris Wakelin, and in the end, what followed was 7 more frame wins. 6 more frame wins, I should say, if you don't count that one. And ever since that first mini session, we haven't seen a frame won by Chang Mingyu, but could this be maybe the start of something incredibly special, or maybe just one more frame that Chang Mingyu can try and take away from Chris Wakelin? Now, as he gets himself lined up for the blue to be taken into the left middle, he can try and get to the lower part of the white and try and play it into the corner. Rolls the cue ball nicely. He's got a couple of easy reds to try and make his way through. And I think if you don't count this one, which is going to be over the pocket, he's got 4 more, which is going to get him into a chance of scoring 50 or so points. Well, nearly running himself out of position on the black though, so has to be careful with those type of shots. Once again, had a very much limited area for the cue ball to try and aim towards. And still has got a bit of a concerned look on his face. Let's see if he's going to be taking the black into the right corner, play this shot through the cue ball, try and get past the side cushion and get himself lined up for the left corner, you would assume. And, well, that was always going to be the difference, trying to make too much of the angle. And, well, I mean, there is going to be a bit of a fine margin in between of I'm trying to enjoy every moment, but also get me out of here. I just want to go home and forget about it for the rest of my life. I don't really know which of those 2 positions Chang Mingyu is going to be taking, but yeah, it's not really going to be nice if you lose 8 frames on the bounce. And Chris Wakelin stepping back to the table, maybe for one last time that we've seen Chang Mingyu in 2025, before it is going to be the handshake. Have to acknowledge that that is possible with him being 6 frames behind and playing not so well. Let's put it kindly to him. And as I say, I mean, once again, no disrespect and massive kudos to him. He will be back ever so stronger, and there's no doubt about it. Listen, when Zhao Xingtong rolled onto the arena and won the UK Championship, he hasn't done it from the first time. He still had a couple of appearances before that. And, when he was coming back on the tour last year, he was in the UK Championship and he lost out in an exciting decider, Sean Murphy. And, 4 months later, he managed to come back as the world champion, defeating everyone, as well as Ronnie O'Sullivan, Mark Williams, Lee Bei Fan, and plenty of other players in the progress. Now then, the pink is taken, and the black is taken into the left corner. But has he run himself slightly out of position here, Wakelin? Because I think he was trying to get into those reds in the way of trying to leave himself up with that red available into the left corner. And probably hasn't actually played the shot well enough. So just looking for the cue ball to try and travel onto the top part of the table. I think you try and get the cue ball away from one of those reds. Two cushion escape in behind the green. Plays the shot nicely once again, as long as he hasn't left a long shot available for Chang Bingyu. Gets at least one more shot there, which is already going to be a great piece of news. I think he has to try and separate those reds away from each other if you can't see that long red. And, well, you may as well just try and go for it and try and enjoy yourself. As I say, it is going to be down to how many points you're actually going to be able to score. But at least give yourself a chance. There's not going to be a lot of point trying to be participating in the safety battle. We're not really playing well. And well, it clearly feels like he wants to enjoy every single shot here. But the problem is going to be he hasn't really played a good safety shot. And that way, once again, it gives a chance to Chris Wakelin to try and take this red into the left corner. Try and get around the black and get himself set up for it to be taken into the left corner. Plays the shot wonderfully. Didn't try and hold the cue ball for the black. In the end, tried to get it onto the top part of the table. And just having a look to see if he's managed to land on the ball colours. I think he's over on slightly for the blue, but it's another great pot by Wakelin. And now we have 10 reds up ahead of ourselves that he can try. And he's probably going to need around 8 of them for him to be over the line. But for now, it's an important shot on the blue. Clearly trying to take the cue ball onto those reds. Is he going to be able to land on one? Of course he will be. That has been the story of Chris Wakelin's campaign. Not only today, but throughout this week. And what an incredible character he is anyway. And of course, previously, a couple of players have been saying that it will take him time to try and adjust to being one of the world's best players. And this win at the Scottish Open will certainly help him a lot to try and be amongst one of the greatest players on the tour. And of course, he is going to be guaranteed to coming back into top 16 anyway, with being the runner-up here. But that doesn't seem to be the case. And of course, if he is to be the winner, not only will he receive 100,000 worth of prize money, he also will receive the same number of ranking points, which will see him going above the likes of Ding Zhuhui, Xi Xiaowei and Guy Wilson, and getting himself back into the world number 13 spot. So it is going to be very much well deserved there by Chris. And great player. It's only time he came through. Yeah, once again. And it's nice to see the likes of him and Xiao Grun especially, coming back to Xiao, of course, being there, Wuhan Open champion for, back-to-back there in 2024 and 2025. And let's see if Wakelin is going to be able to go on a bit of a run himself. I think the signs were there when he reached the Saudi Arabia Masters semi-final. Played really well against Ronnie. And I remember actually being worried that, despite Ronnie making that 1-for-7, because he was before the point that he made the second one in the match, that, maybe the perfect story isn't actually going to end that way, because Wakelin was actually playing really, really well. And it was just one of those days where Ronnie was unplayable on some of those occasions. But he's managed to come back. And especially, ever since that Saudi Masters, he had a tough time on the table. And as he said, coming into this tournament with no confidence at all. But you have to keep trying. You have to keep digging. And, well, I think it is going to be, if not a lesson, I don't think, they're all grown-up players. And he certainly will be a nice little example of how you can come into this tournament and just give it a shot. And be in the equation. And up against Oliver Lyons, Anthony McGill in the opening 2 rounds. It was already a good enough start for Wakelin. And it does look like he will end with that perfect scenario for him. Getting a nice little cannon onto those reds. So maybe just one more long shot needed into the yellow pocket. And surely the finish line will be there for the taking. For now, one more corner. And surely it's a corner that he manages to reach, perfectly taken. The red into the yellow pocket. And one thing I will say though, you can criticise Chang Bingyu slightly, but with the form that Chris Wakelin has turned up into, I'm not sure if you put prime Chomp, he would not have actually been, Chris Wakelin giving him a good game, because made very, very few errors and have been super consistent throughout this performance, not only today but throughout the entire week. managed to put all of his struggles of yesterday, of trying to get over the line behind him. And we're missing a little this year, but finishes strong. Well, listen, Mark Selby's done that at the start of it, and look at him now being the champion of champions, and of course being the Triple Crown winner at the UK Championship at York as well. And this will be a nice example for maybe someone like Ronnie or Kyron. You know, probably two players that are going to stand out at the top part of the rankings. You know, you've got the likes of John Higgins that are still yet to win a ranking event or an invitational event. And also Watchalong has to be put in that equation. But Watchalong is slightly different because he has managed to get himself into two ranking event finals and one more invitational. Now then, this is going to be the moment for Chris Wakelin, the black, for the match and for the title to be taken. And of course, it's still going to be domination work, but it will mean the world to him here, as you would imagine. Slightly run himself out of position for this red to be taken into the left middle, but shouldn't really matter. He's technically over the line, needs a snooker. And now it won't be a snooker needed, and you can see just how much it means to him straight away. Even though it was without a great fight, it still is going to mean the world to Chris Wakelin, winner. And now he certainly can say, GG's in good game. 55 points advantage, 43 at the table, rolls the green on, and this is when you can start to show a bit of emotion. And maybe, just maybe, you will be able to end this one with a perfect century break to make it a wrap here. Great winner, well-deserved winner, and the best player throughout the week. All in all, you have to say, Chang Min-yu can say that he probably had a more difficult of the opposition players to come through, but only one of those players could be the winner. And it does seem like it is going to be a domination win for Chris Wakelin, joint highest this season. And the red is going to drop, so the century hunt is still on. He needs the blue though, which is going to be on the right side of. And then a 6 colour clearance for this to be the century break. And still maybe the highest break in the match. Well, joint highest. Not quite, to be fair. Done my maths wrong. He's going to be 104 points. So that's going to be one of those stats that Chang Min-yu can be proud of. And probably the only one that he actually take on as a winner. And still, massive hats off to him. Just wasn't his day. And he certainly has been Chris Wakelin's day. But he can be back. And he will be back. There's no doubt about it. Only 23 years of age. And his first year on the tour. I mean, tell me a player that has managed to come from nothing and actually get himself a tour card under the first season, reached the ranking event title. I mean, it was already an extraordinary story for him. And now, 9-2, I mean, I think he did say that fun thing because he said 4-2 last appearance and 9-2 it is going to be. Pockets like buckets now, so happy for him and family. Well, pockets are a bit more forgiving than we've seen at Belfast and certainly at the UK Championship. Well, Chris Wakelin can try and thrive with that because he certainly has deserved every single bit of what we've seen today. And then the black for the century. And it is going to be the perfect ending for Chris Wakelin. And he is going to be the winner of the Scottish Open in 2025. And for one last time, it is Chris Wakelin up against Chang Min-yu. And a century break being made. Well done. You can see that Chang Min-yu is happy for Chris Wakelin as much as he can be. Of course, still very much disappointed for himself, but Chris Wakelin is going to be the real aggressor of today, and in the best way possible. Well, this is how you know sometimes winning that fourth frame was going to be one of these most important frames in his life. There is one thing about winning the snooker shootout in 2023, but slightly different when you are going to be the Scottish Open winner of 2025. And after he had the maiden ranking event win for Jack Lisowski, it's not quite going to be a maiden ranking event win for Chris Wakelin, but in the end, it is going to be the one that certainly, for now, at least in his career, will mean the world and the most to him. And from 1-2, 9-2, amazing final. Yes, 8 frames on the bounce. Can't see Chang winning now. Stephen, it's a fair point, and it's a fair point. You can't really see Chang winning now, but he has still played a brilliant part in this final, and as we leave the players to be given awarded for a runner-up player of this tournament, and for the winner to be Chris Wakelin. Disappointing final. Well, in the end, you can say what you want, and You can blame that on a couple of factors, but Chris Wakelin certainly has managed to do all of the work that he has had to, and this is proper ranking title. Yes, whatever you say about Snooker Shootout, it is going to be very different to all the other ones, and massive respect and massive credit to Chris Wakelin to come through over the opponents. You know, Oliver Lyons in the opening rounds, Anthony McGill, Johan Sijun, Joey Long, Matthew Selt, and Chang Bingyu. Well, someone will say it is a bit of an underwhelming run, but I will say that he was the player that turned up and managed to play everyone off the park. Matt Selt probably was the closest. Joey Long tried his best, but he was the player to beat this season, and certainly this ranking event. Happy for Wakelin, needed a proper ranking title. Thank you for covering, mate. Top class. Good ending to the year for Wakelin. Yes, perfect way. And once again, we do have the Home Nations winner being from the Home Nation series. Of course, we had the man from Northern Ireland of Mark Allen. Now we've got two English boys, Jack Lisowski and Chris Wakelin. And now then, for one last time, it is time to say goodbye in 2025. It's been a very fun start to the season, and we all hope that the German Masters, World Grand Prix, World Open, Players Championship, and some of the Triple Crown events like the Masters and the World Championship are going to be trying to live up to the expectations and to the high standard that we've had at the beginning of the season. And see you all in 2026. For now, though, happy and Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to all of you. We'll see you in 2026. And for now, it is going to be a wrap. And once again, congratulations to Chris Wakelin being the Scottish Open champion in 2025. Enjoy the break, everyone, and I'll speak to you later.